Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Red Deer Center for Spiritual Living on July 31st, 2022. So the summer holidays for the children at school is half over already. I know that was always a oh no day. So it's wonderful to see everyone here. Thank you, Lena, for your beautiful job on the bowls. It's always so nice to hear the bowls. And today we have adult children here available, and we are going to talk about letting go. We are always moving through change in our lives, but when we surrender to change, we make room for good coming into our life. So our affirmation is, I surrender to change and make room to grow. So if you want to repeat with me, I surrender to change and make room to grow. And now there are congratulations in order. Both Gord Hamelgarn and Lou Clark passed their practitioner written exams, and I would love, Lou, if you'd stand, and we would give you applause. Thank you so much. And then there'll be another examination, and that will be great. And then you'll be full-fledged. Congratulations. Now, Reverend Judy is still continuing with her summer mastermind clinic every Wednesday. It's 6:30, and it's through August. And come to all of them if you wish, and bring a notepad. And if you wish to leave a donation, it will definitely be accepted. So come on down. And I know Reverend Judy does a great job with her mastermind clinic. Reverend Judy, did you want to add anything? Okay, she says, just show up. Now, we also have a pre-authorized giving plan if you wish to give that way to the center, and it is easy to contribute, and the sign-up forms are here available. Now, yes, another important thing. Our August Science of Mind magazine came in. So they're available, and I can't wait to start reading mine. Now, July, if you want to join me in the opening affirmation, today I am confident, expecting and accepting only good. Every door is open to me. Health, prosperity, wisdom, joy, mine. There you go. To accept that inheritance, to enter into my joy and sit down on my throne. The kingdom of heaven is here and now, and so it is. And now if you'll join me with an opening spiritual treatment before I announce our speaker. Just close your eyes if you wish, and be right here, right now. And know that there is one universal divine power in, as, and through all things. In, as, and through me, in, as, and through all. And I know that the truth and the joy, the peace and the harmony, and the continuing knowledge of all that is ours now. And I know that as Reverend Judy speaks, she speaks with words of wisdom, and I give thanks for Reverend Judy, thanks for the church, thanks for all of the beautiful people who have come here today, and together we say, and so it is. And now we have Reverend Judy. She's going to conquer relationships. Did you know that? You're going to conquer relationships by talking about the one and the only. Reverend Judy.
Now? All right. If pressing the button the first time or two doesn't work, once more, and it does. And we're going to think this is kind of a strange beginning to talking about the one and only, which of course stands for what we call God or universal mind, whatever. But we're going to start with some stuff out of the Pope's visit. And something called the doctrine of discovery, and some of you may have heard about that, just on the news, a little bit about it. And the doctrine of discovery was the principle used by European colonizers starting in the 1400s in order to stake claim to land, to any land beyond the European continent. And the doctrine gave them the right to claim land that was deemed vacant, and it was deemed vacant if it wasn't occupied by Christians. Isn't that something? And this happened in the 14 and 1500s. And you know what? That is still in force in Canada and the US. They've never rescinded that policy. And yeah, that's right. That theoretically Europeans could go out and colonize. I'd like to see them try it with some of the Eastern nations, the Asian nations. Imagine if somebody tried to move into Saudi Arabia and say, I'm taking your land because you're not Christians, so you're not real people. Pretty cute, isn't it? So that's how they got away with taking all the land in North and South America. Just saying, you're heathens, so you're not real people. So that was a pretty sad thing, right? Now, let's look back through the ages and not see that as a bad thing, just see it as one of the markers in history. We start with Adam and Eve and their kids, and Cain and Abel, and Cain turned out to be not such a good one, and he figured it was all right to kill his brother, and through the ages we've evolved. How many? Not much more than what? 350 years ago, it was all right to own slaves, and not only in the US, but there were some in Canada too. So that ethic, when we go back to where mankind started from and what it has gone through with slavery, and slavery in the European nations was a big deal. So if Rome conquered a Grecian city, it could make the Greeks slaves. If Greek conquered a Roman city, they would make their captives slaves. Owning human beings, not a concept we really think about now. But think back, and aren't you glad that it was 200, 300, 400 years ago and not today? And think about the doctrines of the early church that put out these papal bulls. They're called bulls. They're edicts that the Pope puts out. Think about them and the fact that they've never been rescinded. And there is another thing, and it makes me really sad. Do you know, when the Pope was here, he could apologize personally, but he couldn't apologize on behalf of the Roman Catholic Church, because the Roman Catholic Church can never do wrong. So he couldn't issue an apology on behalf of the church itself. And this isn't a criticism of the church. It is merely looking at what has taken place over the centuries and looking ahead to how things can get better. And one of the people who started getting it better was Martin Luther, who was a German theologian, an author, and a hymn writer. And of course, he was the one who was most responsible for creating Protestantism, really. and the church wasn't too happy with him. The Holy Roman Empire that was pretty much all of Europe at that time. And he decided he didn't like some of the policies, like selling indulgences. So you can go and rape your neighbor, and provided you buy an indulgence from the church, you can be forgiven for it. So that was one of the things he was against, and made him write things that opened things up a little bit. And that sounds really good. And it sounds like it gave people some options other than the Holy Roman Empire and the beliefs that were built into that. But Luther also had wasn't 100% what we would like to see. So the history lesson is all part of today's topic. We're getting there. Luther was always also really anti-Semitic. And his teachings and his writings, the stuff he wrote, is considered one of the things that led to the anti-Semitism in Europe, leading up to the Second World War, to what was happening in Germany at that time. And he was German, by the way. So there's another little snippet of history. But can we see how far we've come? From slavery, the church can do no wrong, and selling indulgences, forgiving you before you've done the act, if you turn over enough money. And the Catholic Church has come away from that too, is my understanding. But to where we are at now, with the freedom of religion that is in most of the world, getting to the point where doctrines like New Thought, like science of mind, what we're teaching, is now acceptable. We're not going to be thrown in jail or flogged for it, for teaching it. That's a huge improvement. Where would we have been 500 years ago? Probably in the middle of the Inquisition. So look at our history as an upward curve. Look at where we've come from, and look at where we are now. And now we're ready to start talking about the one and only. And the big idea of the one and only is that, well, we teach that all life is one life, and that life is God's life. We teach that there is not there's a multiplicity of forms, there's a multiplicity of personalities, but in truth there is a oneness that is the entire universe, and that is our truth, and that the one and only one, and I don't care if you call it Christianity or Buddhism or anything else, so long as you get it, that there truly is only one. And I don't mean one religion, I don't mean one philosophy. I mean that if we look at everybody around the world and start to understand that a hurt or a pain to one of them affects all of us. This is what we're trying to get to. But I've skipped by some of my marvelous quotations I'd pulled out here. We'll get there. Oh, before I do that, I want to show you a picture, and many of you will have seen this on Facebook. One of these is a fingerprint, and the other is a tree trunk. And I'll put this on the front chair at the end of the service, but you can hardly tell the difference between the fingerprint and the tree print. It's astounding, really. Just as a little aside to the oneness principle. Rumi, how many of you have heard of Rumi or are somewhat familiar with his poetry? Well, we'll give you a little bit about him anyway. For Rumi, religion was a personal and spiritual experience beyond logical arguments and sense perception. The purpose of our lives on this earth was creative love, to join the beloved. And religion is about oneness with God. He said, I searched for God and found myself. I searched for myself and found God. Of those of you who were in the meditation this morning, that's probably where the central point of the meditation came from. I searched for God and found myself. I searched for myself and found God. And there's a story from Rumi again. Someone knocked at the door of the beloved, and a voice from within inquired, who is there? He answered, it is I. And the voice said, this house will not hold me and thee. So the door remained closed. Then the lover sped away into the wilderness and fasted and prayed. After a year he returned and knocked again at the door, and the voice again demanded, who is there? And the lover said, it is thou. The door was opened. The oneness, you and I are one in reality, in spirit, in soul. And another marvelous example, and this came up too in the meditation this morning. If you think about the ocean and think about a wave, we say a wave is the ocean expressing itself as a wave, but the wave retreats back into the ocean and is one with ocean again. And that's how we choose, or we can choose to look at the one and only, is that we are a wave of the divine expressing as an individual, but that we are still part of and return to the whole, that we're individual, but we're not separate, I guess is the message we want to get across. And we've got so many mystics, so many wise people saying so many wonderful things. Jesus is quoted as saying, remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, because without me you can do nothing. Remain in my love. So if you put that into the universal, remain in me, I can do nothing of myself. But when I am in the one, when I am one with it, the branch being one with the tree, and I remain attached to the tree, then I can bear fruit. Then I can do what is mine to do. And it's a little bit like being the conductor of a symphony. You're standing on the podium, perfectly in sync with the score, the orchestra members, and the audience. You raise the baton, instruments come up, perfect stillness. You move, and the entire orchestra responds as one. Then it happens. You are no longer the conductor, a member of the orchestra, or the audience. You are the music. So for those of you who are attuned with music, when you're making music, well, together as an orchestra or as a band, you become the band. You become the music. That work for you too, Audrey and Ruth? Yeah, well, you both understand that far better than I do, although I love the words. So, do we get it that the one and only, that title, because there is only the one, and we are all in it and of it, just as every branch of the tree is the tree in expression. And another little story here. According to an old Hindu legend, there was a time when all human beings were gods, but they abused their divinity. So Brahma, the chief god, decided to take the divinity away from them and hide it somewhere they could never find it. Brahma called a council of the gods to help them decide where to hide the divinity. "Let's bury it deep in the earth," said the gods. But Brahma answered, "Humans will dig into the earth and find it." Some gods suggested, "Let's sink it into the deepest ocean." But Brahma said, "No, humans will learn to dive into the ocean and will find it." Other gods suggested, "Let's take it to the top of the highest mountain and hide it there." Brahma replied, "Humans will eventually climb every mountain and take up their divinity." Then all the gods gave up and said, "We do not know where to hide it, because it seems there is no place on earth or ocean that human beings will not eventually reach." Brahma thought for a long time and said, "We will hide their divinity deep into the center of their own being. Humans will search for it here and there, but they won't look for the divinity inside their true selves." All the gods agreed that this was the perfect hiding place, and the deed was done. And since then, humans have been going up and down the earth, digging, diving, climbing, and exploring, searching for something which already lies within themselves. Oh, isn't that a marvelous story? It really gets at the heart of our teaching. And there are many teachings around the world with different names on them that have the same message to teach. But excuse me, I really need a tissue. When you have a runny nose and you're in front of an audience, using your hand just won't cut it. All right, so let's get back to it. What is the one and only, and what is our relationship to it? I think we've covered a lot of it pretty well. And I like what Ernest Holmes said about it. In it, we live and move and have our being. And we talked about the ocean. So we know kind of what the one and only is. And now how do we relate to it? How do we come into relationship with it? The relationship that we want. The best way I know of is through meditation. And for me, my most effective meditation for myself is when I speak it. If my mouth isn't moving and I'm not hearing the words, my mind goes off into what I need to get done and what if I don't do this, or what if I do this, what are the results? But if I'm letting the meditation speak itself through me, doesn't matter if I'm sitting in the house all by myself, if I speak the meditation, I get in touch. This morning we had a couple minutes of silence in our meditation, and I got some answers there by asking a question within the meditation, giving it a minute or two of silence to listen, and then come up with the answer. I want to come back to the doctrine of discovery, the right to claim the lands of what were considered heathen, and to come into right relationship with the one and only. It's crucial that we learn to perceive the human race, the entire human race, and its nature as only one. And in and of the only one and the one and only. And are we going to instantly fix all of our problems, all of our history, if we can make a magic declaration? I know the one and only. I am one with the one and only. The one and only is all there is. Like, this is partly why I wanted to drag in the history. We're a part of the development, and not all of us can get there all at once, that we go from being our normal self, sometimes greedy, sometimes hungry, sometimes kind, sometimes not so kind, sometimes good, and sometimes not so good. That's our humanity. But take a look at the difference in our society from societies of 800 years ago, with slavery and so much physical punishment, so much brutality. And Second World War. My father came home, and I was just a baby when he went. I was born in 1940, and he was probably gone before I was a year old. But he came back after being in the Italian campaign and the Desert Campaign. And as I grew older and listened to some of the terms he used to describe the European people he had come into contact with, and he used words like bohunks and spics and many others. And I guess at the time I didn't give a lot of thought to it, but I look at it now and see we wouldn't tolerate people talking like that now. We wouldn't tolerate that in our households. Most of us wouldn't, to use terms of denigration for another race. And yes, he dealt with a lot of people that wanted to kill him. So, you have to look at the time, but take a look at where we've come from. And that wasn't that long ago. Like what? Oh, maybe it is. 75 years ago, but we're getting into more recent history. Think about the people who went through the wars in Asia, the Vietnam War and the Korean War. How have those people come back? Where are their souls in terms of recognition of the peopleness of the races of the world? Were they destroyed by that, or were they improved? Did they come back more enlightened or more dogmatic? Who knows? But I'm using the word but in capital letters. But we can look at ourselves and where our own prejudices might lie. Each one of us kind of a work in progress. I know I am. And we get to work on whatever negative views we might have on other countries, other peoples, other beliefs, including the doctrine of discovery and the Holy Roman Church. And that's how we come more closely into relationship with the one and only. We don't have to like everything that another country does. We don't have to like everything that another philosophy or church teaches. We don't have to like it, but we have to know that regardless of beliefs and practices, wherever that person finds their connection with the one and only, that's right for them. Bless them on their path. Wherever the Pope, in his humility and his directness and in his efforts to sow peace and reconciliation, bless him. He's doing his job the best way he knows how. To the people who ran those residential schools, many of them, I'm sure, did the best they knew how. And our civilization at that time was so close. They really and truly thought, the people who made the decisions, thought they were doing our indigenous people a favor by assimilating them. All right? That was not the way we see it today. But at the time when those decisions were made, and I'm sure many of the teachers, many of the people involved, Catholic or the other churches that also ran schools, the idea of it was supposed to improve life for those peoples. So we take a look at something that happened, that yes, it was a tragedy, and it was a mistake, but we grow past it. We don't let it consume us, ideally, but we grow past it. We don't want to continue practices that have proven to be harmful, but we grow through it and past it. I want to talk about prayer beads. Did you know that as well as using beads for the rosary, that there are Buddhist prayer beads as well? And once when I was at a conference, there was a minister on the stage talking, and he was talking about a visit he had made to India, and he was conversing with a spiritual leader there. The spiritual leader was explaining how they use their beads to repeat a different mantra with each bead, and then he asked Reverend James Mellon, so what do you do? What's your spiritual practice? And Reverend James responded, well, we have something similar. And what we say is, there is one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. Simple mantra, right? You can use it. Imagine if you're in a dark state and feeling, maybe blaming yourself for something. Can you go within, and if you can't come up with just a spontaneous meditation, could you repeat that about 50 times? Get a necklace or a bracelet and count and use the beads for each line if that works for you. There is one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. How do you think you'd feel after repeating that about 50 times? You think you'd be in a better state of mind? And if so, we kind of come to the end of this message, and I hope you have some understanding that however we see our world as imperfect, and when we see things going on, not in our country, of course, but on the other side of our southern border, and we, oh my, what are they doing? We can say, they're doing a lot better than they did 300-400 years ago. Slavery is no longer an option. And yes, they've got a long ways to go. But when we look at Canada and we look at the people who are still with us, who came through the residential school system, we can say that was a great, I'm not going to say evil, that was a great injustice and a great mistake. But we are growing out of it. And I know truly there is one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now, and so it is. And with that, let's go into the prosperity portion of our program. Do you like the word prosperity? If we are feeling prosperous, we have enough for ourselves and enough to share. So if anyone out there in computer land wants to share with us, I'm sure you'll find a way to do it, including phoning, finding out about the committed giving format. And Reverend Tress is here on Monday and Tuesday mornings. I'm sure she'd help you out with that. And well, if you have a donation you're going to give here, and today we've got a basket up here, just drop your envelope in the basket, and I thank you for that. And let's read the prosperity affirmation and feel it. I am continuously aware of the abundance and the potential of the ever-expanding universe. I accept my right to be here and to experience life in joyous and abundant ways. I make the choice to say yes to life and accept all that it has to offer. I give freely and receive with gratitude, and so it is. And we'll move right into our closing affirmation. While you've got your sheet in your hand, there is something within me that has the answer to every question, the wisdom and the strength to meet every challenge. As I learn to trust this inner power, I experience peace and harmony in all my affairs. Spirit is active in my life. I am truly blessed, and so it is. And practitioner intern Lou Clark is going to come and give us our closing treatment. Can we grab your mic, Reverend Tress? There we go.
Thank you. As we close this morning's activities, I am ever grateful for the spiritual enlightenment, for the knowledge that that spiritual energy that I choose to call God not only was with us this morning, but will go forth with you as you continue with your day. May you take peace, prosperity, and health with you, knowing that we are all in the one that is. Thank you.
Thank you.